Welcome to Phoenixmasonry Live,
a show about Masonic museum artifacts,
interviews,
Masonic history,
and much more.
I am Frederick L. Milliken, Executive Director of Phoenixmasonry.
And I am Elena Llamas, Director of Public Relations for Phoenixmasonry.
And we are here to
celebrate
our Freemasonry.
Celebrando nuestra francomasonería.
This month's celebration will be an interview of famous sports broadcaster, writer, and author of the hot-selling Masonic book, Know Thyself, Michael Schiavello.
Masonic authors are an assorted group of people. They include many with double professions, ranging from realtors to professors and everything in between. Yet, no matter how diverse the Masonic learned culture is, Michael astonishes us as he goes from covering a sporting match for a major television network to interviewing Hulk Hogan and the likes of Pelé in the past to discussing Masonic topics with ease. Michael, as Frederick noted, is the author of Know Thyself, Using the Symbols of Freemasonry to Improve Your Life. This book aims at distilling the life lessons taught within Freemasonry for the general public. Welcome, Michael.
Elena, Frederick, it's great to be on here with you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, first things first, Michael. You were born in Australia. Did you grow up there as well?
I did. I was born in Melbourne in 1975. Spent all my my life there until I started traveling when I was 18 years old for work. Actually, my first international trip ever was to the United States, covering the 1994 World Cup. I remember I was based in Pasadena, California, and thinking that America was the most incredible place I'd ever been to, and it still does hold that view very much so in my mind today. But born and bred in Melbourne.
Michael was a teen broadcaster. He was today is a television broadcaster and sports commentator. He's based in Las Vegas, Nevada, but he began his radio work in high school when he was 16. He had his own Sunday morning sports radio program on Southern FM. Was this in Australia?
Yeah, that was back when I was 16 or maybe 15 years old. I began with Southern FM. We did a community radio station sports show every Sunday morning from 9 to 12. Just the way that I was in high school, I think. Once I found my passion for media, I spent all my weekends covering football games and soccer games and writing for newspapers and doing radio, while my friends were out getting drunk and losing their virginity. My mum was driving me around a sports game so I could cover them, and I got a lot of great experience and don't regret any of it. It was one of the best times of my life.
You went by Mr. Scoop, and you had interviewed while a teenager soccer players such as Diego Maradona and Pelé.
Yeah, they were good days. You know, I just had this knack from the very moment I started doing radio and media altogether. I had this knack for getting famous interviews that mainstream media people who were twice my age and working for big networks just couldn't get. And I'd simply ring people at their hotel, or I'd hang out at hotel lobbies when I knew the tennis stars or the cricket stars or the football stars were in town, and I'd ask them for an interview. And maybe it was my boyish young ways that they sort of gave into me, but I managed to outscoop a lot of big media people, and the likes of Maradona and Pelé and a lot of tennis stars like Stefan Edberg and Goran Ivanisevic and Monica Seles and Gabrielle Sabatini. I mean, 16 years old and hanging out and interviewing these people, it was amazing.
Michael, this is your life. Between 1993 and 2000, you worked as chief editor of Blitz Publications, helping to transform the publishing house from a two-magazine outfit to a publishing powerhouse of more than 10 national and international selling titles, including Golf Magazine, Ironman Magazine, Soccer International, Women in Sport, Australian Women's Health Magazine, International Kickboxer, Blitz Martial Arts Magazine, and Triathlon and Multi-Sport Australia.
In 1998, you became the youngest journalist ever inducted into the Best Australian Sports Writing Awards, Random House, for an article on Olympic gold medalist Kathy Freeman.
Yep.
In 1996, you began a stellar television career as the youngest television sports commentator in Australian TV when you were signed by Fox Sports to helm their combat sports broadcasts.
Then your work in Australian TV attracted international broadcasters, and in 2001, you began working events in Japan, Korea, New Zealand, the United States, and Europe for Sky Television.
In 2009, your commentary style caught the attention of billionaire celebrity Mark Cuban, right here in Dallas with me.
Yep.
Cuban made you the official voice of AXS TV's fight sports coverage in the United States.
Then in 2010, AXS TV launched the Voice Versus series. This is hosted by you. It's an amazing show. We did research on it. We have a PowerPoint to show really quickly about it. It's an interview show that features some of the biggest names in combat sports and entertainment, including Steven Seagal, Hulk Hogan, Michael J. White, Sugar Ray Leonard, and Joe Rogan, to name a few. And go ahead, Frank.
As a fight sports commentator, Michael has called more than 6,000 fights.
Here is a promo of The Voice Versus with episode Steven Seagal. Here you are interviewing Sugar Ray Leonard, ripping your shirt off with Hulk Hogan.
Welcome to The Voice Versus. What makes you want to put your life on the line against, drug traffickers, human traffickers, rapists, and the likes, protecting the border?
I'm a warrior, and that's in my blood.
Nobody has ever asked me that question before, and nobody's ever known that before.
The 1968 Olympics, that was the most special day as an athlete in my whole life. I didn't know dreams came true.
So which out of the big three, Hearns, Hagler, Duran, did you most fear before you fought them?
It was Durant, because I just thought he was a madman.
And then that's when I said, and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
You didn't know there's a world-class cowboy stripper named Chocolate Giddy-Up?
Oh my God, how did you get that?
We talked several times. What could we do that, hasn't been done ever? I said, well, it's been done, but, we could turn me into a bad guy.
True or false, Mark Wahlberg once told you off for staring at Robert De Niro in public.
No, he didn't tell me off.
Stephen came out and said that he taught Anderson Silva the front kick that knocked out Vitor Belfort.
I remember being on set and on deadly ground trying to get Steven Seagal to throw a front kick.
I will never, ever
swim in Australia, dude.
Thank you for a hell of an interview. That's probably the best interview anybody's ever given to me, and I appreciate it.
Okay, it's time to dive into your Masonry and the book Know Thyself.
In the back of the book, there's some information on you and on the book, and it mentions that you hold a certificate in Masonic studies. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So in Australia, in the state of Victoria, which is where I'm from, the Grand Lodge there has a Masonic education course that they do via correspondence if you're on the road like I am, or you can do it with live classes that take place in Melbourne. I did the course from here in the USA over a year or a year and a half, I think it took. It's you write essays after every lesson you do, and then they get graded. And of course, if you pass the grades by the end of the season, you receive a certificate. And it was amazing experience that taught me a lot about the history of Australian Freemasonry, but then it also delved into the symbols and the esoteric part of Freemasonry as well. And I think it was a very, very rewarding experience. And I'm proud to have gotten that certificate. They also do a diploma course, which when I get the time, I'm hoping to do as well.
And you have authored 4 books, actually, including the 1999 bestseller, Bouncer. Can you tell us a little bit about your prior books?
Yeah, Bouncer was the little book that could. It came out in '99. It was my first ever book. One of my good friends that I used to work with, there's the book, called Mark the Hammer Castanini, a former Australian kickboxing champion, was also a bouncer on several of Melbourne's seediest nightclubs over the years. And he'd come into work every morning at the office and tell me these amazing stories about hanging out with celebrities and throwing out drunken patrons and, sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the bouncing industry. And I said to him one day, I said, Mark, we should put this into a book. So we sat down and I got his stories on tape and I wrote them into a book. And this little book that was just a sort of spare time hobby for us developed into a bestseller within 6 months in Australia, got national media attention on A Current Affair. We had Jean-Claude Van Damme signed to make a movie version of it, which was going to happen before Van Damme had a falling out with his management at the time. And that really sparked my love for writing books. I did a couple of more nonfiction books after that. I tried my hand at fiction in 2001. And then it had been a while between drinks before Know Thyself came out in September. So I'm glad I finally got back into it.
Awesome. Well, shall we dive into Know Thyself now?
Yes, let us dive in. And Michael, one of the themes of our broadcast, the central theme of what we're doing here is celebrating our Freemasonry. And we're so happy you're here with us today. We're going to celebrate Freemasonry once more, and you're going to celebrate it with us, and then we're going to celebrate you.
Well, I like this, Frederick. I like this because, you know, I'm master of a lodge here in Las Vegas. It's my sitting year as worshipful master, and I have the exact same philosophy that Freemasonry should be a celebration of being a member of the greatest organization on the planet. And I've been getting record numbers in our lodge here in Las Vegas. I mean, just yesterday we had 37 people attend lodge, which is a number that's unheard of in a lot of other lodges because the vibe of our lodge is so positive that I make it a weekly celebration for everyone to be there every Monday at noon, celebrate brothership, celebrate camaraderie, celebrate the craft. Its symbols, the esoteric side of it, celebrate the education, and just celebrate being a part of history that dates back not only 300 years to the formation of the first Grand Lodge in England, but stretches back thousands of years to the ancient mystery schools. And we should all be very proud to be the flag bearers of these ancient mysteries from back in the time of the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, the Druids, the Egyptians. We are the flag bearers today of that, and that makes me very proud. And the fact that so many great individuals have come through Freemasonry over the years, I mean, not only in America, but England, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, across Europe, all across the world, 6 million strong still. We should all be very proud, and we should celebrate that each and every day.
Well, I'm glad I'm not the only one that's pumped here.
If I know it, Fred, you ought to make a cake.
Michael, Know Thyself has many references and descriptions of medicine and medical procedures, religious references, and explanations of ancient history. My God, man, where did you get all this knowledge?
The great architect of the universe opens up this thing here and puts it in there, and then it just goes out there, out my fingers and onto the page. You know, the beautiful thing, Frederick, and you know as a two-time worshipful master, is Freemasonry is such a complete method or form of education, and there is so much depth to it. Like you said, the medicine side, the religious aspects of it, the other spiritual aspects of it, the symbolism of it. There's so much to it. And you know, I carry this little guy around with me everywhere I go, my ritual book. It's always in my pocket. It travels with me every week on the road. I'm always reading it. And I get the basics out of here, but then I like to dig a lot deeper because I believe that Freemasonry is an onion. You need to peel the layer after layer after layer. And every time you take off another layer, you discover another section. You take off that section and discover another treasure. And I like to dig deep and go to places where people don't think they can go, especially within Blue Lodge, but you can go that far. You can go that deep and just see how amazing Freemasonry is and how this ancient method of self-improvement, this ancient method of education still applies to our modern 21st century daily lives as much as it did when this ritual was created. It's incredible.
I'm going to tell you, Michael, what really got me is making good men better. You know, we say that, we give lip service to it, and I've talked to people in lodge about it. And how do we make good men better? Well, I don't know, just, you know, blah, 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 blah. Listen to the ritual. But you explain exactly how we can make good men better. And that is so important to me and to most Masons. You know, you remind me a little bit of Dr. John Nagy, Coach Nagy, because he tries to explain to his Masons exactly what this all means. And you have explained in here how we make good men better. And I'm I'm really applauding what you've done.
And Frederick, thank you, because that was one of my main aims. I believe that, you know, I've listened to so many Masonic talks over the years. I've read so many Masonic books, and you know, been to lectures and attended lodges everywhere, and spoke to fellow Masons in my travels around the world. And a problem that many authors, I believe, have, and many lecturers have, and many Masons have, is they don't know how to explain Freemasonry in simple to understand layman's terms that the everyday person who's not a Mason, the Cowan we call them, can understand. Okay, you should be able as a Mason to explain what we do and how we do it and why we do it to the average man or woman walking the street. And given my background as a writer, and especially as a feature writer for magazines, as you guys talked about earlier, I sort of think that I know how to translate something that can be as complex as Freemasonic instruction into a very simple to understand way, yet still get in depth about it. And I think it's important for all of us Masons to realize that we need to really improve the way we communicate about the craft of Freemasonry to non-Freemasons, because A, this is how we promote the beauties of the organization. B, this is how we attract more people to Freemasonry. And C, if you have a passion for anything in life, you should be able to discuss it and make it sound very, very simple.
Well, this is a great time, I think, to talk a little bit about the format of this book, because you're talking about distilling the lessons of this book for the average, for the general public. And so the format is, it has many different reoccurring features, but one of them is that, or the main one, is that you grab or you take a theme or a symbol, like the apron, the point within the circle. It goes throughout the book, and you explain it to the general public in a very good way. Right. And then where beginners and non-beginners find this very profound and enlightening, and then you have a section called Life Application, where you go specifically, how can everybody, the reader, take the lessons and the symbology and the history that you provide. Like Frederick mentioned, there's a lot of ancient teachings in here, and lots of philosophies discussed in this book, and history. And so you take it and you go, okay, how can I apply this to my life in concrete terms? And then you have another section called Ask Yourself, where you ask open-ended questions for the reader to think about their lives. And so in this way, the reader can learn about the different symbols and really incorporate them into daily mundane life, and make it a more significant living experience.
Correct. And I think this is what the initial attraction was when I pitched the proposal to Lewis Masonic. Lewis Masonic is the oldest Masonic publisher in the world. They've been around forever and a day and have printed some amazing books. But this was the first time ever I think they'd received the proposal for a Masonic book that was targeted not at Freemasons, but at the mainstream audience, at the mainstream public. And it's the first book they've ever published that is towards that demographic. And as you said, Eleanor, having that life application and those open-ended questions at the end of every chapter means that it is a way of driving home how you can apply these symbols to your daily life and to problems or incidents you may have in your daily life, that lets you know how these ancient symbols can overcome those problems. When I've been in lodge and I've done lectures on all the Masonic symbols, and I ask a brother, hey, what do we learn by the square? And they give me the usual 1 or 2 sentence answer you'll find in here, but they don't dig a lot deeper. And then I ask, okay, how do you apply that square to your daily living? And you get blank stares. They don't really know. That is really reciting what's in the ritual book. Well, Know Thyself aims to tell you beyond what is in here, how you can actually dig deep and apply these to everyday life, whether you be a man, a woman, whether you're a teenager, in old age, in middle age, it doesn't matter. It's a self-help book. And, I just read one of the reviews on Amazon last night, a 5-star review, and the reviewer put that it reminded him of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that makes me really happy that he's comparing this to another very successful mainstream book that a lot of people get something out of that contributes to improving their daily life. And it comes back to what you were saying, Frederick, earlier on, that Freemasonry does make good men better. And I think it's Freemasonic teachings are not just for Freemasons. We can open it up to the rest of the world and let other people who are non-Masons see that they can make themselves better through our ancient teachings and our ancient symbols parlayed into a modern audience.
Well, I'm glad Louis Masonic took the risk to go with you, but it's just a spectacular success that you've had. I think I'm just going to briefly mention this. I've been following the promotion. This book is being sold globally. It has sold out. It sold out on Amazon within less than an hour that it was put online, and then it sold out again. We had to even wait a little bit to get our copies. And so you heard somehow that somebody in the royal family of England bought your book. That's a little crazy. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was funny. I wake up, Martin Fawkes, who's my publisher at Louis Masonic, updates me every day, and he's updating me from London, of course. So I'm asleep here in Las Vegas, and I wake up in the morning, and he said someone from the royal household, we're not sure who, had purchased your book, and we're very happy about that. And you do hear inklings recently that one of the princes, either Harry or William, has recently been made a Mason. My money, the good money here in Vegas, is on Prince Harry becoming a Freemason. But, I'm just thrilled that it sold out twice on Amazon, and they've restocked it now for a third time, and the reviews are going great, and the demand's fantastic, and it really is hitting home that lesson. And also the amount of people, Eleanor, that have bought it that are non-Masons, especially women, back in Australia and here in the US, that have bought it and are getting benefit out of it and asking me to sign copies and mailing it to me to get it back to them. I'm just overwhelmed. It really is what I hope to achieve, to open Freemasonry up for a huge, wide, mainstream audience.
Micah, we've been talking generally, but I want to get a little specific. So here's a question for you. Early on in the book, something that really impressed me was a 3-letter word. And that was M-A-P, map. Would you care to expound on that for our viewers?
Well, I believe that when people ask me what Freemasonry is, my answer is that Freemasonry, for me, because it's different for everybody, is a method of self-improvement. It's a roadmap to self-improvement, to becoming a better person and becoming the best you can be, transcending your brute animal nature and becoming more in touch with your spiritual side, more in touch with your connection to your divine source from where you emanated from, but really becoming the best human being you can be. Now, I think that there are many methods of self-improvement that exist. A lot of people choose to do yoga. People choose to do meditation. A lot of people choose to do martial arts. People choose to undertake religion, higher curriculum studies at various higher schoolings. And Freemasonry is another method of self-improvement that's been tried and tested over hundreds of years and has proven its worth. So there are many roadmaps in life. And I think that whenever you want to get to a destination, Frederick and Eleanor, you need a roadmap to get you there. You need a map to get you to wherever you want to go. So if where you want to go is to be a better person, then Masonry is a map to get there, okay? It starts at the specific place when you as an entered apprentice or you as a candidate first knock on that door 3 times of your own free will and accord, and it starts in your heart and you enter that lodge room for the first time. You have unfolded that map that says you are here, and then it gives you a path to follow and a big giant star towards the end where you say this is what you can aspire towards. And although most of us may never get to that very, very end, which is the achievement of our perfect self, it is something to aspire towards throughout your entire life. And I think that you're very haphazard in life if you don't have a map to follow, no matter what you're undertaking. I mean, if you joined a martial arts class, for argument's sake, and you strapped on a white belt and you had no instructor to show you how to kick and punch and breathe and even the esoteric part of martial arts, you'd go nowhere. You couldn't become a black belt and beyond. It's the same in Freemasonry, okay? If you have no roadmap showing you where to go, you can't achieve it. So when you bring up the word map, and I think I do mention it very early in the book, Freemasonry is a roadmap. There are other roadmaps available to you out there, some of which I've mentioned, but they all lead to the same destination. And that destination is becoming the best person you can possibly be.
Well, why are symbols so much more effective as a learning tool versus the written word?
I think the symbols ingrained on our conscience make a larger impression than the written word. Symbols and allegory both, I think, weigh evenly on the conscience. I've got a 2-year-old son, and at the moment I'm trying to teach him not to cry for no reason whatsoever. And he'll cry sometimes, and he'll make believe that he's hurt. And I tell him the story of the boy who cried wolf, which is an allegory. And Freemasonry teaches a lot via symbolism and allegory. And that is a story that I remember because of the symbols of the boy and the wolf and the allegory of the story, which sits more in your conscience. And symbolism is the same. It's very powerful. In one symbol, and behind Eleanor there, you see the G inside the square and compass. You see a lot of symbols in the background. You know, within that symbol, a Mason looks at that, and that tells us more than 2,000 or 3,000 words on a page could, just by looking at it. That's like one of those magic eye books. You look at it long enough and the true picture reveals itself to you. That's a whole story of morality, of esotericism, of life lessons ingrained in one simple symbol. And throughout time, all major teaching institutions stemming from ancient times through the Renaissance right up to current times have always used symbolism and still use symbolism to ingrain the most important lessons on the mind. Because you can read a page of words, and if you don't have a photographic memory, you forget those words. But it's pretty easy to remember a symbol. And if you can learn the lesson, attach that symbol, and get the dual recall, the recall of the symbol, the recall of the lesson, put it together, bang, you've got a time-tested and proven system of learning.
Elena?
So, yeah, one of the things you mention throughout the book is conspiracy theories. You address some of the issues that symbols can bring too, right? You're mentioning the positive, if I may label it that, side of symbols of what they can do for your consciousness and your life. But then there's also some symbols that become scary, like, you know, the eye, all-seeing eye, and conspiracy theories that refers to a big government kind of thing. So you address a lot of those fears that are out there in the general public throughout the book. Do you want to comment on that?
Thank you for asking me about that, because I think it's a very important part of the book. I say in the book, and I've said this in other interviews as well, with the conspiracy style interviews that have tried to take it to a very bad place when it comes to Masonic symbolism. And they'll say, well, the all-seeing eye is an evil symbol, and a square and compass is a very negative symbol, and a 5-pointed star, and all this. And I say, listen, you know what, guys? A symbol is only as powerful as you choose to let it empower you or let it take over you, okay? Now, if I show you this, I'll do it with my fingers because I don't have a pen and paper handy, but okay, I'll show you a triangle there, okay? Now, to a primary school student who's drawn a triangle on a piece of paper, that is a triangle. To a high school student who's studying mathematics, he'll see the principles of geometry contained in the same triangle that the primary student drew. To a Freemason, we'll see an equilateral triangle as being equal on all three sides, mind, body, and soul, representing the perfect man. Same triangle that the primary student drew, same triangle that the high school student drew, same triangle the Freemason drew. Now, if a Satanist draws the same triangle and they call it a thaumaturgic triangle, well, they use it to summon demons and bad entities. So you see, the very same symbol that a 4 or 5-year-old drew as a beautiful triangle for mummy and daddy and colored it in can also be perceived by a Satanist as attracting demons. But it's not going to attract demons into the life of the 2-year-old or the 3-year-old because he doesn't perceive it that way. He doesn't allow that symbol to have that power over him. Yet the Satanist does, okay? The kid won't see the Pythagoras theorem in a triangle, but the mathematics student and the Freemason will, because we allow that to. So that's what I say. If you walk past a symbol while you're walking down the street, or you open up your wallet and you take out a $1 note and you see the all-seeing eye, it doesn't mean, now, it means to you, if you think it's Big Brother watching your every move, okay, and spying on you, okay, that's what you, and you only, you have the choice. You only are allowing that to be that to you. But to me, I see a beautiful symbol, an ancient symbol of a higher power watching over me, a higher power watching over me and making sure that I don't do bad stuff in life, because even though sometimes I think no one's watching, God's watching. A higher power's watching. Karma, if you want to call it karma, is watching. It's the referee that calls the foul before you commit the foul. It's someone watching your back, someone watching over your well-being. And that's what I choose to let the all-seeing eye be to me. So I'm glad you brought that up, Eleanor, because it's a topic I do like to discuss, and I do like to hit that home, that any symbol, Masonic symbol or not, is only as powerful as you, and here's the word, choose it to be.
Wow. I don't have anything to add. I think that's very, very profound way of seeing it. It's not a black and white. No, the symbol has to mean this because I'm a Freemason, and thus I'm telling you what it means. It doesn't mean the conspiracies. You allow the room for people to interpret it as, you know, big government or whatever conspiracy they have, and in a way, you respect that view.
Well, you're respecting freedom of choice, really. And yeah, I never drill Masonic instruction, Masonic education, symbolism down anyone's throat, especially not someone who's not a Freemason. I just don't believe in that. When you come across an anti-Mason, I'm not one to get my back up and get into a verbal fight or an online fight with people. It's like, well, that's your choice. If you choose to go down that path, then that's the path you've allowed to empower you, and you take with it what you will. But I know my path, and I know the benefits of Freemasonry and our symbols. That's the path that I choose, the path that my brothers choose, and the path that I've been able to teach a lot of non-Masons about as well, and they now embrace it. But that is all part of personal choice, and personal choice is something that makes us human. It's one of the beautiful gifts we have of being human. So we should never try and ram anything like that down anyone's throats, but everyone has the choice, as I said, to let a symbol mean to them what it will.
Yeah, one of the most amazing parts of your book that we touched upon briefly is that you connect the teachings to the current, if you will, of same and similar teachings throughout history. The very first sentence on the back of the book says, there is a system of teaching that traces its roots to pre-biblical times and counts Pythagoras, Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates among its forefathers. Now, I'll tell you, we made some comparisons before. What I thought of when I read that first sentence was The Secret, the book and movie The Secret, because it came out with the notion of having there being a secret teaching throughout history and all these currents, and now it's available to the public. And in your case, the system of teaching is Freemasonry. And once I started reading the book, I'm very happy you chose to write it that way, because it is so true. It is Freemasonry. This is a book about Freemasonry, but you sure connected to the stream of teachings. I can list so many for the audience. You can see here on page 16. I mean, you go through, there's Jesus, there's so many, there's Plato, there's Buddha, Confucius, Aristotle. I think that's a wonderful work you did that speaks to the origins of Freemasonry, whether they were traced directly to those ancient schools or whether there is a larger consciousness, or whatever your theory of how Freemasonry came about. You include all those streams in here.
And I believe that as Freemasons, we should be open to the teachings of great teachers. Anyone who can teach me something in my life, I am open to learning from. And as you said, I do list the teachers that are the main teachers that are in the book, from Jesus to Hillel to Pythagoras to Socrates to Plato, Francis Bacon, and a whole lot more are all listed there, because we can take our lessons from these, you know, Buddha is another one, from the lessons that go back thousands of years. And we should always be open to learning new things. And nobody can truly lay claim, Eleanor, to knowing the root, the true origin of Freemasonry and where our ritual came from. We just don't know. There's no record of it whatsoever. I like to think that the people that wrote Masonic ritual were such geniuses that they were open to the learning, to the teachings of these ancient teachers from thousands of years before them, and they put this together. They really melted it together, stirred it up in a pot, and then created what we know as Masonic ritual today, which really is a melting pot of the lessons taught throughout history by great teachers, not just Christian teachers, but Buddhist teachers as well. There's Islamic teachers, there's Hindu teachers, ancient Greek, ancient Roman teachers, Jewish teachers. The list goes on. Freemasonry is a melting pot. And as I said earlier, we really are the flag bearers for all this ancient knowledge that is really more applicable than ever today to our modern society.
Michael, you write a lot about the divine spark. What a concept. Could you explain what you mean and elaborate for our viewers?
You know, interestingly, the chapter of the divine spark was something I added towards the end of writing the book. I didn't have it in my original draft, but it's something that kept coming back and back every time I researched each chapter and each symbol. I kept coming back and asking myself, but what's at the guts of this, Michael? What are we doing? What's Freemasonry really about? I know it's about self-improvement. I know it's about becoming a better person, but there's got to be more. It's got to be deeper than that. And it all came back to something that I call the divine spark, which I believe that inside of each of us, there's a spark that is a part of our immortal self, a part of our connection to a higher source. You can call it God, you can call it the great creator, the almighty, the supreme creator, the grand architect, whatever you like, the vital force, if you don't want to use the word God. But there is something that is more than flesh or bone. There is something that animates us, okay? There is something beyond our flesh, beyond even our soul, that is an immortal part of us that can never, never die, as the Masonic ritual says, represented by the sprig of acacia in the Masonic ritual, the part of us that never, never dies. The divine spark is your connection to God, and that is your aspiration towards the very highest you can be, okay? And that's why it's so important to use a map in life, use a method of self-improvement, whether it's Freemasonry or martial arts or yoga or meditation or whatever, but the goal is all the same, elevating that divine spark that's stuck inside our material animal nature, elevating it out of that, because that's your true self. That's the best you can be. That's your most beautiful self, okay? The point within a circle represents your divine spark inside your soul, inside your material body. I talk about it in the book, okay? I also talk about there it is. Thank you, Eleanor. That's a blueprint for your entire being right there. That is really an architect's blueprint for who you are. And it's one of my favorite chapters I wrote, to be able to break it down and explain how you emanate from a divine spark. The divine spark is then your spirit, and that is at the very center, being the dot, because a dot is the start of everything you create, is started by one single dot. The dot on a canvas becomes Botticelli's masterpiece, becomes Da Vinci's masterpiece. It all starts from a dot, just as you start from a dot. You start from a divine spark. That divine spark is inside the circle, which is your soul. That circle, the soul, is inside the straight, the square, which is your body, okay, your material side. Why do we say that? Because squares don't appear in nature. Therefore, squares aren't something that are godly. Squares are something that represent man, because we made them. They don't appear in nature. But circles appear in nature. Circles appear everywhere. So your circle is trapped inside your square, and right in the middle of it all is your divine spark, and that's the spark you need to ignite. And if you can learn to ignite that spark and become closer to your true self, closer to your source, to ascend, then you're on your way to becoming the most beautiful version of yourself you can be.
Well, I'm going to say that the dot of your book, that center core, is exactly what you just talked about. It is a book that seeks to center you, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, to center you on your spiritual life, on your conscious, intentional living, if you will, of thinking about what you're doing, where you're going, a map, basically. I think that the concept you just described is the very point, center, and core of the entire work.
And thank you, Eleanor, and I agree. And I believe you'll probably feel the same after having read the book. For want of a better word, when I wrote the book, I didn't want to get too fluffy, airy-fairy, cloudy with the way I described the process of igniting your divine spark. The way the book is written, really anybody of any age, of any profession, any background can read it. I even put a little bit of humor in there. It's very relatable to the everyday person. And for those that are thinking, well, I don't want to have to sit under a waterfall and meditate to read this book, it's not like that at all. You can pick it up, sit in the toilet, sit in the train to work, have a read, and garner something out of it. So hopefully I made it very applicable to the everyday man or woman, or boy or girl for that matter.
I'd like to follow up on that, just exactly what you're talking about, because Elena hit a real spark in me when she brought that subject up, and you writing about it, it just takes me. I look on your book as a message for us to live a stronger spiritual life. And one of the quotes which really drove home this point was C.S. Lewis's, "You don't have a soul, you are a soul. You don't have a body. You have a body." Let me say that right. You don't You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body.
Correct. Correct. And I think once people realize this, Frederick and Eleanor, your life, when I read that quote, and it was already a philosophy that I believed in myself. When I read that, it was really the most concise way of putting it that I'd ever heard. And that's why I included it into the book. You got to realize that this is flesh. This is flesh and bone. Okay. This is just a vehicle, but energy can never die. Einstein said it. Energy can never die. It can only be transferred. Okay. So energy animates this body that we're in. Our divine spark animates this body we're in. So when this body dies, the energy inside of us, the divine spark, it doesn't die. It just transfers. It goes somewhere else. It moves on. This may sound strange to you, but as up until 6 weeks ago, I'd never seen a dead body. I attended the funeral of a brother, our organist in our lodge, who passed away. Beautiful brother. He was 94 years old, and they had an open casket. And it was the first time I'd ever seen a dead body. And I stood over the open casket and I looked at it, and I went home and I told my wife, and I said, darling, the first time tonight I saw a dead body. She goes, oh, did you freak out? Were you scared? Did it freak you out? What happened? I go, you know what? I actually appreciated that I saw it. It further strengthened my belief in what I believe in, because when I looked at Brother Dan's body, I saw just his shell. I really just saw his shell, and I knew that his divine spark, his energy was elsewhere. And this was just a shell of a man that I saw in front of me, and it hammered home that point. And I think that once we realize that, we can learn to live our lives a whole lot more. We can learn to respect our bodies a lot more too, but we can learn to live our lives with a greater end goal, that it's not just about the 70, 80 or 90 years we spend inside this physical form. It's about eternity. And I appreciate that you brought that up, and that hit home with you as well, Frederick.
Yes, and one of the things I want to say to our viewers is that we're not going to bring up everything in this book. We're going to bring up some of the points that hit Elena and me, some of the points that stood out to us. But you need to buy the book, because there's so much more in here that we're not going to talk about, and perhaps deliberately. But I want to tell you about one. The thing that really, really hit me hard, and I appreciated you so much for talking about, was, I'm getting emotional about it, I'm sorry, the chapter on the Tyler, because I was reminded of a prayer I say every morning. And the prayer in it, I announce that no influence is allowed to come near to me, but that it is first filtered through the light of Jesus Christ, in whose name I pray. Jesus is my Tyler. How do you see this?
I'm glad you brought that up. It's also one of my favorite chapters about the Tyler. And I believe that the Tyler, and for those non-Masons that are watching, the Tyler is a guy that stands outside the door of a lodge with a sword. It's usually a symbolic sword, but in my lodge, he's got a full medieval broadsword. And they basically stand as a guard. They're a bouncer, making sure that no one but Masons can enter that room. And it's very much a forgotten position. And what a lot of people don't realize is that, like everything in Masonry, the Tyler is symbolic. He is symbolic of guarding your mind, of guarding yourself from evil thoughts, from negativity, from bad vibes, from entering into your life. And I mentioned that in the chapter on the Tyler, that when you wake up every morning, make sure you Tyler yourself. That's what the Tyler is all about. As Frederick said, when he wakes up every morning, he gives thanks to God, and that Jesus is his personal Tyler. So when you wake up in the morning, there's so much bad stuff out there in the world, and so many negative influences that can enter into you and make your day really bad. Make sure that you tile your mind, tile your body. And I give a visualization technique in the book where when I need to do it, I picture a big wooden door with a brass knocker on it, and an old guy with bushy eyebrows and a big sword standing outside it. And I picture a negative thought or a headache or a negative person who I may be dealing with at work or whatever, trying to get inside my mind and trying to get at me. And my big bouncer stands there with his sword and says no. And eventually this negative thought disappears. And then my bouncer in my head knocks on that big wooden door 3 times, and I feel relaxed, because I'm like, okay, you know what? I just tiled my mind. I made sure my bouncer put that velvet rope up and said, no, you're not coming in tonight, out you get. And that's really what the Tyler is. And again, trying to relate Masonic symbols to a modern audience, think of it as a bouncer on the door of a nightclub. You won't let in the rowdy patrons, the drunk patrons. The patrons are going to cause trouble. The bouncer's there to make sure that inside that club, everyone is safe, everyone's happy, and having a good time. Your own personal Tyler makes sure that you are safe, you are happy, and you are having a good time. And we should tile ourselves every day. And Frederick, I'm glad to hear that that you do that. It's beautiful.
Well, what you just did right now is illustrate for us exactly what you do throughout your book. You take a concept here, the Tyler, we expanded on that, and you go through how specifically what your thought process is, what your technique is, what the incorporated out of the symbol into your life, and then how you create a new habit, a new way of living following this map. You just illustrated that beautifully for us, and this is what you can find, the readers, in this book. What Michael just did with the Tyler, and Frederick and myself here talking about it. He goes symbol after symbol in here with the life application, and it's and you mentioned the symbology of a bouncer. So Michael, we already covered your background in sporting. You're writing the book Bouncer. You do a great job at bringing your personal, extraordinary, for the rest of us, life experiences. So it's also very colorful. The foreword that was written by, and I need to pronounce this correctly, so I'm going to bring it out. The foreword, where is his name? You tell me, Michael.
Front cover at the top, Pat Miletich.
Yes, tell us a little bit about him, because he compares Freemasonry to martial arts. I found that very, very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about who he is? And
I will. I'm very excited. And again, it comes back to this book being so applicable to a mainstream audience. Pat Miletich, who wrote the foreword, is the worshipful master of Hamilton Lodge in Bettendorf, Iowa. He's the current sitting master. But he is also a UFC Hall of Famer. So he's one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. Maybe the top 10 UFC fighters in the history of mixed martial arts. Very famous fighter, but also a fellow Freemason. He was also my co-commentator on national television every week. And when I asked Pat to write the foreword for the book, he was thrilled to do it, and I'm thrilled with how it came out. And Pat and I approached Freemasonry from two very different angles as well. Pat got into Freemasonry for different reasons than I did. I got into it for self-improvement, and I love the esoteric side. Pat loved the historic side, especially the great Americans, the great American revolutionaries as well, who had been Freemasons over the years. That really appealed to him. And I'm thrilled once again that the foreword is written by someone, A, who has such a huge public image, but B, who would ever think that a book on Masonic symbolism would have a foreword written by a UFC Hall of Famer? It's pretty cool.
Yeah, UFC means Ultimate Fighting Championship, for those
Correct. Pat's not the only fighter, and Frederick, you'll know this, not the only fighter to be a Freemason over the years. Jack Dempsey was a Freemason. Joe Lewis was a Freemason. Right. Sugar Ray Robertson was a Freemason. Yep. Guy Metzger, Freemason. The late Ryan Jimmo, a Freemason. Freemasons and fighting, and as you said, Elena, Freemasons and martial arts really do gel together very, very well.
Well, I got a couple more questions, so I hope we can get them in.
Okay.
Symbolism, Michael. The winding staircase has got to be one of the big symbols. The 357. But in the chapter about the winding staircase, you talk about the Fibonacci sequence. Could you explain that to our viewers?
Yeah, this was an interesting chapter to write, because most writing on the winding staircase focuses on the 357. I don't think I mentioned the 357 at all in the chapter on the winding staircase, because I don't think it's as significant as the true teaching, which is the fact that the staircase is not a straight staircase, it's a spiral staircase.
Absolutely.
Because spirality, or via a spiral system, is how we most effectively learn in life, a spiral education. When you're learning something, you learn via a spiral education. And of course, spirality occurs all throughout nature. It's put there by God. It's put there by the Creator. And you find it in the Fibonacci sequence. You'll find it in pine cones, in seashells, in the shape of a galaxy, the shape of a hurricane. You'll find it in the pattern of your ear, the way your hair grows on your body, in flower stems. So really, the Fibonacci sequence, which is a sequence of the way that numbering patterns develop. I give an example of it in the book, arises a Fibonacci sequence which ties into nature. And therefore, spirality is directly tied to nature. Nature is God. Therefore, I'm saying that the best way to learn anything in life is to follow a spiral system. If you're at the base of a mountain and you want to get to the top of a mountain, the only way to drive up there is to go around the mountain as a spiral. It's the same learning Freemasonry. It's the same learning anything in school, anything in university. It's the same in any teaching system. If you're starting at the bottom, which you do, you've got to go around in a winding spiral motion. It also means that when there's a winding staircase, when you're at the bottom and you're starting out, you can't see what's at the top. You can't see the top of a winding staircase. So you've got to have a little thing called faith. You've got to have the faith that the method of teaching you're undertaking, which for us is Freemasonry, has the necessary spiral teaching to take you to the place you want to go, which is at the top. It's a spiral way to get there. Of course, if you look at a straight staircase, you can see the top, but you can't get to where you need to get via a straight line. Okay, you've got to get there spirally. So to me, that's what the winding staircase of Freemasonry teaches. The 357, I don't think is so important as the fact that the staircase does wind, and it comes back to the Fibonacci sequence.
Okay, as we're getting short on time here, I'm going to double up and ask you a dual question, two questions in one. You talk a lot about balance and you talk about duality. If you could combine answers on, they're kind of tied to each other, I think. You could combine the answers on that for our readers. You spend a lot of time on those.
I think balance is very important. Balance comes down to harmony. And any Freemason knows the importance of harmony. In fact, when we open a Masonic lodge, the senior warden, or I know now in our Nevada ritual, the senior warden makes sure that he is ensuring the harmony of the lodge. Harmony is the utmost importance. You can't be in harmony or have harmony if you don't have balance. And balance is required in everything you do in life. Okay. Also, when you walk through the two pillars in a lodge room, you're walking through the middle of the two pillars. You're not walking closer to the pillar on the left. You're not walking closer to the pillar on the right. You're walking down the center. You're maintaining equal balance on either side. You're not allowing things in life to polarize you one way or the other. Don't be polarized to the extreme positive or polarized to the extreme negative. Walk down the center line and achieve harmony and balance. And that's the clearest way to lead your life. And also, as you said, it ties into the duality. On the floor of most every Masonic lodge, you'll find a checkered pavement, black and white squares, Absolutely. Which we're taught represent the good and bad in life. And the bad is taught by the black, the good is taught by the white. And we're taught that in life, we need to inevitably step on good and bad as we go through, but try to step more on the white squares, okay? Try and favor the white squares and walk that center line, walk that good center line. Also, you talk about duality and you talk about the two hemispheres of the brain. Of course, if you favor more right, you favor more left, so be it. You have different characteristics to your personality, but if you can favor them equally, walk that center line between your feminine side and your masculine side, then you learn the balance as a human being. You learn how to be the very best person you can be. And when God originally created man, he created man in his own image, which was equal parts feminine and male, because that early original man who was free of sin and was still connected to the source was a perfect example of duality, walking that center line and being perfectly balanced. And that's the place we need to get back to. So really, as you said, duality does tie in with balance, which comes back to harmony, which is one of the great things that every Mason is looking for in his life. And we always need to open a Masonic lodge, which means we always need to open up ourselves and conduct our lives with harmony.
And what you did just now, you connected the teachings again to historical allegories and myths or ancient history, depending on one's take on the creation story that you mentioned. And that you find throughout the book. It is very practical, but it does not exclude at all esoterics and history. It is very well-rounded for people who are not very esoteric. That what it expands on it with a purpose of being practical ultimately. So it is. I wouldn't call it it's a balanced book. We were talking about balance. It's a balanced book that way. It's practical and it's also esoteric. It's philosophical and also historic.
And I would like to add some closing comments here. And Michael, I'm so glad you were with us today. You are such an inspiring person. Man, I'm just pumped. This book is great. You all go out and buy it. And what I'm gonna end with here is a quote. No comment needed, okay? This is my favorite quote from the book, and it will end us today. And this is about Freemasonry. In the quiet of the tiled lodge, shut away from the noise and clatter of the world, in an air of reverence and friendship, it teaches us the truths that make us men, upon which faith and character must rest, if they are to endure the wind and weather of life. Amen, Michael. Amen. So mote it be. Great job. We're closing.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you so much for coming.
Eleanor, Frederick, thank you very much. I love the Phoenixmasonry site. I use it myself a lot for my lectures and my research. And this web show is fantastic. I appreciate the interview, and it's been an absolute pleasure. And keep up the great work. And I'm thrilled you enjoyed the book. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you for that on behalf of Phoenixmasonry. And that's all we have for you this time.
This is Frederick L. Milliken.
And Elena Llamas.
Parting on the Square.
Pots. Welcome to the second installment of Phoenixmasonry Live Masonic Artifact Series.
I am Frederick L. Milliken, Executive Director of Phoenixmasonry.
And I am Elena Llamas, Director of Public Relations for Phoenixmasonry. And today, we are going to show you a wonderful artifact still in its original box. It is a 1904 past president jewel for the Order of the Sons of St. George. At the very top of the artifact, there is a pin to attach it to clothing. Then there is a red flower or rose surrounded by the Latin phrase, Honi soit qui mal y pense, which means shame on whosoever would think badly of it, or may he be shamed who thinks badly of it. Underneath the circle, there's a 5-pointed star with a beautiful purple flower jewel. Underneath the star is the name of its owner, William M. Critchett, past president, Pioneer Lodge, number 79. In the back, there's the original manufacturer's sticker, which reads, Edwin Booth, badge manufacturer, Brooklyn.
The Order of Sons of St. George was first established in Scranton, Pennsylvania in 1871. It was originally founded for the purpose of resisting attacks by the Molly Maguires, a secret society of Irish immigrant laborers working in the coal mines of Pennsylvania. The Molly Maguires were founded after the predominantly Irish Catholic Union, called the Workingmen's Benevolent Association, was broken up by the mine owners and officials.
The Molly Maguires operated in secret and used the signs, passwords, and grips of the ancient order of Hibernians.
The Order of the Sons of St. George evolved into an ethnic fraternal benefit society for Englishmen residing in the United States of America and their sons and grandsons. It offered sick and death benefits to members, other benefits, and social activities such as dances, picnics, and other lodge activities.
Membership was limited to first, second, and third generation Englishmen. There was a female auxiliary called the Daughters of St. George. Both organizations are long defunct. Accompanying the jewel is its membership credentials in great condition. You can see at the very top of it is St. George himself riding a horse, wearing a Roman soldier's helmet, slaying a dragon. The legend of St. George has it that he was a Roman soldier of Greek origin, and his legend of slaying the dragon was made popular by crusaders and retold in courts in the style of the romances. Reading the membership credential, it says, Past W. President's Credential, Order Sons of St. George. To the Grand Lodge Orders Son of St. George, State of Connecticut. This is to certify that W.M. Critchett has served a regular term for the first day of December 1903 to the first day of June 1904 as W. President of Pioneer Lodge number 79, is clear on our books and is entitled to a seat in the Grand Lodge. There is a seal barely visible to the naked eye, and it is signed by James A. Hall, W. President, and also the W. Secretary.
Like the Railroad Society, in our first artifact installment, the Order of the Sons of St. George has Masonic-like ritual. It has opening ritual, closing ritual, and ritual of initiation, and other rituals. You can find this ritual on our website, phoenixmasonry.org, and we will have a link to it below this video.
Here you can see other examples of jewels from the Sons of St. George Order. You can see St. George riding the horse, trampling the dragon with the Roman helmet on his head on each one of these. And one of them is a past Grand President's jewel, the larger one.
If you have any artifacts you want to donate to Phoenix Masonry, we would welcome them, and they could get featured in a future show.
Well, thank you for joining us on this, our second installment of Phoenix Masonry Live Masonic Artifacts series.
That's all until next time, when we will be back with another artifact.